Hello folks, Cassius and Sharky again, and welcome to our final look at The Hollow Crown.
After going through the individual episodes, the time has come to take a look at the series as a whole, as an adaptation of The Henriad.
From the fall of Richard II to the conquests of Henry V, we will discuss how this series performed as an adaptation of Shakespeare's second tetralogy.
So join us as we wrap up our look at this year's main event from the BBC's Shakespeare Unlocked. This is The Hollow Crown. Crown definitely has some of the highest production values I've seen put to the Shakespeare histories, and indeed some of the highest production values I've ever seen in Shakespeare, period. It blows the former BBC series The Complete Works and An Age of Kings out of the water.
Thanks to an ample budget, a decent amount of shooting time, relatively speaking, and a goal to present Shakespeare's histories in the best way possible, as in not just so that they can say that they did it, The Hollow Crown is the most visually stunning television production of the Henriad that I've seen. Whether it's Richard II's lavish interiors, Henry IV's cold, desolate reception chamber, or Henry V's claustrophobic yet brighter throne room, it is always a sight to behold, with the aesthetic coordination between the three directors allowing for the visuals to help with the mood of the story in a finely flowing manner across all four features.
Speaking of how the movies connect to each other, one disappointment for me was the lack of continuity between Richard II and the Henry plays. Somehow, in the time skip between these two, Rory Kinnear turned into Jeremy Irons, and Tom Hughes turned into Patterson Joseph? How much time has passed here exactly?
It is not 10 years gone since Richard and Northumberland, great friends, did feast together.
10 years? Really? Also, we don't get Hotspur's involvement in Richard II, which informs his anger in Henry IV Part 1 and would have been a really great way to tie the usurping actions of Richard II into Henry IV's reign. This is only really an issue since these plays are clearly a unit, and the Henry plays do hold together pretty well, so why was Richard II played like it was in another continuity entirely? Especially since the Henry play characters refer back to Richard a lot, and many of those references are actually kept in this script cut.
This isn't anything new, sadly, since Complete Works also did this kind of major cast overhaul between Richard II and Henry IV Part 1, which made me sad since Jeremy Bulloch played Hotspur in the previous movie. Really, it would have been cool to watch Prince Hal have a one-on-one match against Boba Fett. Thus far, the only series that I know of that has kept the cast intact is An Age of Kings, where Sean Connery plays Hotspur in the first two plays, allowing for a showdown between James Bond and Cornelius Fudge.
Two stars keep not their motion in one sphere. Nor can one England brook a double reign of Harry Percy and the Prince of Wales.
Nor shall it, Harry. For the hour has come to end the one of us, and would to God thy name and arms were now as great as mine.
I'll make it greater ere I part from thee. And all the budding honours on thy crest I'll crop to make a garland for my brow.
I will no longer brook thy vanities. Esperant!
Who later ends up marrying M. Seriously, I think Funimation has more people in their talent pool.
La plus belle Catherine du monde, mon très cher et divin déesse.
Oh, Your Majesty, have force French enough to deceive the most sage demoiselle that is en France.
Yeah, well, they probably do have more people in their talent pool. As far as performances go, they are uniformly fantastic. Jeremy Irons, of course, is the MVP of this, knocking the middle child king role of Henry IV out of the park. As for the plays themselves, Richard II, unfortunately, made stronger choices for its minor roles than its two leads, leading to a bit of emptiness with the major characterizations and plot points. The Henry IV plays were really fun, though I didn't love Falstaff being as much of a wet blanket as he was here when he can be much funnier than that. My favorite was Henry V, most likely because I'm not super attached to the play, so I was much more willing to just roll with the movie. Also, the particularly compelling portrayal of Henry V didn't hurt.
Performances are indeed great, and Jeremy Irons does pull off the role of regretful usurper quite well. Richard II, as I've mentioned, had its performers seemingly acting out of a more complete version of the play, and cutting it down to 30% of what it used to be made their rather extreme reactions seem to come out of nowhere. But again, that is in no way their fault. I disagree with Cassius' views on Falstaff in the Henry plays. Yes, he's the comic relief, but I never found him to be funny for more than 2 minutes at a time, and more complete cuts do keep him going, which gets even worse in part 2 when it's clear within the first 30 seconds of hearing him talk that the scene you're about to watch will be borderline irrelevant to the plot and not as funny as it would have been 4 centuries ago. Cutting the character down significantly and having Simon Russell Beale portray him as a weary, jaded soldier, especially with the honor speech and its rather fine presentation as an internal monologue, is a brilliant choice. He rarely overstays his welcome and gives the heartbreak that he suffers at the end of the third feature that much more weight, because for once in a Henry IV Part 2 adaptation, I wasn't celebrating the fact that someone finally managed to get him to shut up. As for Henry V, despite some questionable scene approaches, it's really hard to mess up a story that really just hops from plot point to plot point, and thankfully, they didn't. It's really nice when people actually trust the play to mostly stand on its own. As for favorites, I'm going with Henry IV Part 1, for its fine balance of storytelling and lovely moments of slowing down the action to let us focus on a few of these characters.
Because of the great performances and the production values, these Henry plays, the Henry IV and Henry V plays, are going to be my go-to productions for these plays when I want to watch movies of them. Richard probably won't be my go-to Richard because the stronger choices I've seen elsewhere, but it's still downright gorgeous and well executed with some of the best minor character performances that I've ever seen on screen. On the whole, this is a fantastic, fantastic series that made shockingly effective use of the adaptation process and also makes a pretty good Exhibit A in the case that I have for the golden age of Shakespearean acting being right freaking now.
The Hollow Crown is a great series overall, and I will most definitely get it on Blu-ray once it comes out. As for go-to plays, I still prefer the Age of Kings version of Richard II. The Hollow Crown's Henry IV plays, for reasons of keeping with the visual continuity as well as the fact that they're both pretty good, and Kenneth Branagh's Henry V, although the Hollow Crown's version currently resides in second place on my list.
And that does it for our wrap-up of the BBC's The Hollow Crown. We hope that you enjoyed watching us for the past 5 weeks as much as we drove ourselves to the brink of Cthulhu-induced madness trying to get these reviews to you on time. Until next time, this has been Cassius.
And this has been Sharky.
Thus far, with rough and all unable pen, our bending author hath pursued the story. In little room confining mighty men, mangling by starts the full course of their glory. Small time, but in that small most greatly lived this star of England. Fortune made his sword, by which the world's best garden he achieved, and left of it his son, imperial lord. Henry VI, in infant bands crowned king of France and England did this king succeed, whose state so many had the managing that they lost France, and made his England bleed, which oft our stage hath shown, and for their sake, in your fair minds, let this acceptance take.
I will tell you in French.
Oh, first you butcher my compliment, now you butcher my language. Charmant.
script cut. Yeah, right, I'll just pull all those out of my head because I can totally keep track of which were the 70% they cut and which were the 30 they kept in.
Seriously, it would be bad, like Death of Rudolph Valentino bad. No one will get this joke, Cassius.
That's not gonna be the last time I get injured in the name of Shakespeare. That was painful. Whew. Okay, tunnel vision, here we go. I saved my tea.